Welcome to the McGregor Angle. My name is Catherine McGregor, and each week I try to offer my angle on the events making news here and abroad. Tonight we're going to be joined by the National Party member for Mallee in the House of Representatives, Anne Webster, and columnist, broadcaster and Sky News all-round star Jenna Clark from our Perth studio. Let me thank them both right up front for finding time to join us on Good Friday. For most people, of course, it's a holiday and an opportunity to get away for a 4-day weekend. Good luck to you. However, for Christians, it's a day of solemnity as we remember the Passion of Christ. Passion is something of a euphemism for the brutal crucifixion endured by that young Nazarene on a hill outside the gates of Jerusalem. The ordeal he endured after his arrest on the Mount of Olives was blood-curdling, even to a generation like ours, inured to violence by its dominance of our news cycles and entertainment alike. Now, I'm neither a televangelist nor a theologian. I'm just another broken sinner trying to navigate this valley of tears. But I am one of those for whom today is a day to pause and ponder the deeper questions of life and death and eternity. I happen to believe in the divinity of Jesus, and I believe in the literal resurrection as it's described in the Gospels. Sneer at those as fairy tales if you wish, that's your prerogative. But a lot of people who claim to have met the risen Christ willingly face death rather than retract their claim to have seen him after that famous Sabbath, which changed the course of history. Which of your opinions would you be willing to die for? Ranting and grandstanding under a fake name on Twitter is one thing, but willingly undergoing torture and martyrdom for one's convictions is transcendental and takes courage of a very particular variety. Our consumerist, individualist society can't even grasp the concept. A theologian whom I admire, the late Thomas Merton, a monk of the Cistercian order, once said that even if one doesn't accept the divinity of Jesus, the events of the week leading up to his death constitute the template or the trajectory of every single human life. There was the adulation of the crowds on Palm Sunday, a Passover supper with his dearest friends, followed by betrayal by one of them, denunciation and abandonment by the man he considered the rock and most reliable of his supporters. We're then told of the terror and isolation he endured in the Garden of Gethsemane. And then came that degrading flogging and execution by sniggering soldiers, while his bereft mother wept at his feet. While perhaps not as vividly enacted, every human life contains some of those elements across the spectrum. All of us at times have been badly let down by those we love and trust, or in turn, we've betrayed and failed those we love. We ride ephemeral waves of popularity and acclaim from strangers or from workmates, only to be discarded and left to suffer grief and abandonment. We claw our way to financial success only to find that it leaves us empty or emotionally bankrupt. And we all die. That's the price of being born. Our little time on this earth is between two great eternities. We come from one and return to it. On my best days, I draw comfort from my faith. On my toughest days, I wonder whether I'm simply deluding myself. I've got to confess to that doubt. But my faith has sustained me through the darkest of the dark nights of the soul. It is an innately personal matter, so I won't labour it any further. But I wouldn't be authentic on this day of all days I did not proclaim my belief. My faith came to me when my own best efforts at life had failed completely. I was a daily drunk and a drug addict who probably had months to live over 3 decades ago. Had something greater than me not intervened, I would not have drawn a single breath in the 21st century. I know that because it happened to me. Miraculous? I've got no other word for it. Anyway, that's enough. Who you think that man on the cross gasping for his last breath was, is what really matters. It's the most debated and discussed life ever lived. And I guess the real point is how you answer that question, whether you do so consciously or unconsciously. And that's my reflection on Good Friday. Now, to kick the night off, I'm joined by the member for Mallee, Anne Webster. And thank you for taking time to join us.
It's an absolute pleasure, and hearing your introduction, Catherine, I have to say, as a woman of faith also, knowing those dark days of the soul and the restoration, I just am really grateful that you said all of that.
Well, thank you. I deliberated over it for a long time, and I'm very conscious of making demands on people, and especially believers, on a day when probably most would prefer not to be working. So thank you very much for joining us. And look, there's a lot to get through. Clearly, it's impossible to evade what, on a day like this, a day of solemnity, is an unsavoury topic, and that's been the rape allegations arising out of the Brittany Higgins case, the allegations levelled at Christian Porter, the former Attorney General and now Minister for Industry. You yourself, only this week, in the last 72 hours, felt compelled to raise a matter of direct harassment. Are you able to enlighten us a little bit about that? And I'm absolutely bewildered, may I say, Anne, to preface this, as someone who comes in and out of this building but doesn't work here, at the extent of the behaviours I've heard described lately. I've got to confess to being absolutely bewildered. And as a woman who's in their first term, were you expecting this? Have you been shocked by what's gone on here and what's alleged to have happened, and your own encounter? Please illuminate our audience.
Well, thank you. Look, in terms of my own experience you asked me about, I was, like you, bewildered. I was actually speechless. I couldn't comment at the time, because it's the last thing that you expect on the floor of the chamber. It was only as I went away and I communicated with my staff, I communicated with my husband and my kids, who are all adults, and the rage that they expressed to me, like, how could this possibly be, that I thought, okay, I actually need to do something more about this. Because ultimately, you know, it's like that saying, what you walk past is what the standard that you hold. And I certainly don't hold to that standard. And I know the women across Australia have made it abundantly clear that they want this to stop as well. I think the other thing, Catherine, was that the Deputy Prime Minister had asked me to be the point person for Nationals staff and former staff and members to come to, should they want to discuss allegations, want to discuss issues that they were having in the workplace and in Parliament, obviously, or had previously had. And so that had been unfolding over the previous few weeks. So given the media that was surrounding all of this, I was just, you know, the thing my husband said to me was, where has he been? Under a rock? Like, how could this be?
Had to be the most extraordinary failure of judgment. You know, we've heard this term, read the room, and that's what staggered me, was after all that had occurred, that it could have happened as recently as this week. So, look, what's your assessment of the reset that the government's attempted? I know for Conservative women it's been a very taxing time, because many have felt conflicted. They wanted to show solidarity with the marchers outside this place a few weeks back, but also probably didn't feel particularly welcome, because there were many critics of the government, and high-profile critics of the government. Where do you see the trajectory for women from the National Party and more broadly in the coalition? Are you satisfied that enough's been done in the prime ministerial reset and the reshuffle of the cabinet?
Yeah, look, I think that, none of these, what we're really talking about here is cultural change, and no cultural change, as a sociologist, no cultural change happens immediately. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, we're talking about policies being reset. We've now got a reshuffle in the cabinet. I think the Prime Minister is actually doing an excellent job in incredibly difficult circumstances, and he wants to get back, you know, working for the people of Australia, but he has recognised, as has the leadership, of course, that this issue about the treatment of women, workplace relations, about bullying, about sexual harassment, assault, is not going to go away. And we have what I think is a really good opportunity for change. And, I think I certainly am not someone who believes in quotas, but I certainly think that more can be done to prepare women for politics. And one of the things that happened last weekend, we had the Nationals Federal Conference, and the young Nationals were present, and I was asked to speak to them about this issue. And what impressed me so much was that the women were really very happy to say, if you can be happy to say, I'm really angry about this. I can't not be angry about all of this. This is the young women. And the men, one by one, once I'd explained that this is not about the emasculation of men, this is about respect. This is about building a culture of respect. It's about each one of us, men and women, taking the responsibility to call out what is not right. For women, the courage to step up and say what is not right. For men to call out, when they see behaviour that's not okay.
And you've got doctoral qualifications and have worked in a related field, as it were. Is Parliament worse than other workplaces you've encountered? Like, have you been shocked at what you've encountered since your election in 2019? Because I think the people of Australia have been stunned by this stuff, frankly.
Yeah, and look, I think that we need to be really cautious. I would say to everybody in my electorate, the last thing I want to do is to paint a picture of a toxic environment. I actually don't think it is. The vast majority, in fact, it is so minuscule, those who may misbehave, so to speak, that we have an incredibly intense environment. We are all focused on doing the best that we can, whatever our roles and responsibilities are within Parliament. And that's certainly my focus, and I'm not hindered in doing that. So I think that it's wrong to present Parliament as being toxic. I think that there's a professionalism that can creep into those who come from policy advisor positions into potentially MPs without the life experience. I mean, I'm fortunate that I've had so much life experience behind me. I'm no spring chicken. And so, I bring that to the table.
And we're grateful that people like you are standing for Parliament. I did have more than a casual glance at your curriculum vitae. It's impressive. I hope we can chat again. Best for the Easter weekend, and having heard your conviction, look forward to every blessing, and God bless you for Easter. And
thank you very much, Catherine, and to you too.
And thank you for taking time to join us. Thank you.
Pleasure.